everybody. Welcome back to the College Town Podcast. My name is Derek DeBurke. With me is Sam Roth.
How we doing?
Is Georgia washed? Has the speeding finally caught up to him? I don't know. It's not for me to decide. That's for future me to decide. Technically, it's past me, but you're going to see it after this, so it's future me.
Yep.
Also, is LSU washed? They might be. Is Miami washed? I don't know. They could be. Iowa State. Indiana? They won, but are they washed? I don't know.
Oh, my God.
How many teams are washed? Anyway, we also talk about some other bits of news, such as Diego Pavia suing the NCAA.
Dylan Gabriel breaking records.
Yes, Pitt losing because the refs decided they should. Todd Golden and all that jazz.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Is Todd Golden washed? He might be. All right.
Auburn players fighting on a plane.
Yes. And then, of course, we do our pick'ems at the end of the episode, as always. So we hope you enjoy the episode. We hope you watch the episode. We'll see you in there. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the College Town Podcast. It's Derek and Sam. There were some upsets.
There were some upsets, wasn't there?
Yes, there were.
Which one do you want to start with?
I mean, let's start with the big one. Maybe, is it the most concerning one? Georgia and Ole Miss?
I don't think it's concerning.
It might be. I mean, Georgia scored 10 points.
Georgia did score 10 points.
It's not good.
I don't know. It kind of revives my hope in this Ole Miss team a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I will say I feel like this has turned into Ole Miss has only looked good the last 2 weeks.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying they're bad by any means. Like, you can turn things around, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And Lane Kiffin's a good enough coach to where he can do that. He can facilitate that shift in the season.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this says more about Georgia than it does Ole Miss.
Really? I mean, I still think Ole Miss is a good team, though. I mean, they had some...
No, they're good. They are good.
They had some bad games against who they lose to, Kentucky and...
LSU.
I mean, like, outside of that Kentucky game, it's... Not to say LSU's great either, but it's one of those where it's like... If Ole Miss can play well, they have a shot.
I think LSU is not that good a loss.
No, I don't think there is such thing as a good loss.
We've been over this, but I'm just saying I don't think LSU is that good.
Right.
I was vindicated a little bit this past weekend, but I think there was, I don't remember which commentator said this. I wish I could remember, but there was someone that said, "What does Georgia do really, really well?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't. I was saying it all of last year. I was like, oh, this is not the team that we've seen the previous 2 years.
Right.
And it wasn't. And this year, even more so, they are desperately missing Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers.
They are.
That offense is just not the same without them. Carson Beck has been exposed. He's thrown 12 interceptions in their last 6 games.
He's not good.
Yeah. And he, I mean, his draft stock has just completely plummeted. Everyone was saying at the beginning of the year he was the number 1 pick, which I didn't think made sense.
Which is crazy to think.
But,
we both didn't think that.
Yeah, but the thing is, their offense does not look good at all. Their defense is not the elite of the elite that it has been.
No, it doesn't have 5 first-rounders on it year in and year out.
Yeah, so it's rhetorical, but I'll ask it again. What does Georgia do really well?
They're not elite.
Yeah. So to me, this is a good win for Ole Miss. I'm not trying to take too much away from that. I just think that this says a lot more about Georgia, and I just think that they're not. I don't think they're a national championship contender this year.
Didn't they beat Texas at Texas though, or am I thinking of Alabama?
They beat Texas at Georgia. They lost to Alabama at Alabama.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think Georgia's a national championship contender.
I mean, I think with the way the playoff is this year, in that it is not so narrow tight to where only 4 teams are making it. They expanded it times 3 basically.
Yeah.
To where you have 12 now, more or less. For lack of better words, 11 really good schools and then an at-large school.
Maybe some years that at large is going to be good. Like
Cincinnati when they had Sauce Gardner and Desmond Ritter.
yeah. Well, also, I mean, this year like Boise's top 12 on their own. Like there's it currently stands. There's a world where Boise could rise enough in the ranks where come championship Saturday they don't have to win.
I see, because they're going to be the best team regardless of the group of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is one of those that's interesting because as far as like Boise State goes, outside of that Oregon loss, which in week 2, which Oregon looks like a completely different team
Yes,
from
they
what
do.
they did
They absolutely are.
beginning of the year. Boise really hasn't played anybody, which I think is a fair assessment to make.
They did give Washington State their only loss.
Right.
And Washington State,
I think does Washington have 2 losses?
they have 1 loss.
I thought they have 2.
I believe they're 8-1. They could be 7-1, but I think they're 8-1. Washington State has looked pretty solid this year. Their quarterback is impressive. I think his name is John Mateer.
Yep, they only have 1 loss.
Washington State is not a bad team at all.
I gotcha.
So I personally I think they have 2 good wins. I mean they quite literally have 2 ranked wins, or a ranked win. But I don't know. To put a bow on this, unless there's more that you have to say. I'm not completely out on Georgia, but I've got 1 foot out the door.
They still have a shot, is what I'm going to say. And like Georgia's a top 12 team in the nation.
Yeah, I mean they have
a
top coach.
Like if they don't make the playoff, I'll be shocked. Now, how far they can go in that playoff, it really depends. Because right now, if we're talking about the tiers right now within college football, I really do think that there are 3 teams that are the elite of the elite right now. And I think that is
Oregon, Ohio State,
Texas.
Texas, yeah.
Those are like the 3 I think that are there.
I don't see Texas. I think Texas has looked really, really good against all the terrible teams on their schedule, and they have looked less good against the better teams. Like they lost to Georgia. I can't think of who else they
lost
played.
30-15 against Georgia.
Yeah. I just think in
At
hindsight, Texas's schedule has been. I think that's the case with a lot of these SEC teams. I think their schedule in hindsight has been significantly easier than people thought.
Which is kind of crazy to think.
Yeah, but so okay, Texas, the good teams. They lost to Georgia by 15. They beat Vandy by 3, and that was on the road, so that was impressive.
Right.
Yeah,
that's about it.
I think that's it. That's it. Texas has had an easy schedule.
I would agree with that.
Like a lot of SEC teams have had an easy schedule, but no one's punishing for it because it's the SEC, and it's like okay, but these teams have just had a cakewalk on their way to the 1 loss thus far.
So Tennessee, A&M, and Texas are the only 1-loss teams in the SEC. We don't have an undefeated team in the SEC. Tennessee plays Georgia next, coming up.
Oh, there is a scenario that currently exists where 8 teams could finish with 2 losses in the SEC. I think.
Oh, interesting. Well, there's currently 9 teams with 2 losses. And you could honestly argue all of them with 2 losses or less are vying for the spot in the playoff. You could argue it.
I don't know if Missouri is.
I don't think Missouri is either, but I said you could make an argument for it. Like,
I mean, you know what? They still have a shot at winning the SEC, so I'll give you that.
I mean, like Missouri wins out. I mean, they have South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. I mean,
This is a hot take. I think those are all losable games.
I don't think it's that hot either, just because I don't think Missouri is fantastic, but it's definitely they're playing everyone below them. They're not playing anyone above them in the rankings in the SEC.
Yeah.
As far as like
like Georgia still has a gauntlet. I mean, not gauntlet. They just have Tennessee left. They get through that. They have Georgia Tech and UMass. Then you have like Ole Miss is kind of cleared out after that was their last big game. They have Florida and Mississippi State. Like, there's not too many. Like, Tennessee, Georgia is going to be a big one.
Texas A&M, Texas.
Is that one?
Mm-hmm. Last game of the
Last
year.
game of the year.
Which I'm telling you, A&M's gonna win that game.
Really?
I've been saying it all year. A&M is gonna win that game.
Really, but I don't see that one bit.
I do. I just think
Like, LSU slipped. They have 2 losses now. Who
LSU
do
has
they-
3, I believe.
in conference, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have Florida, Vandy, and Oklahoma. It's kind of crazy to think that, like, nobody in the SEC minus Tennessee and Georgia, and like Texas A&M, no one can play their way into the championship game. They can just eliminate themselves.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Oh, it's extremely tight right now in the SEC. It would be less so if they played 9 games. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But since we are on the SEC, let's just kind of stick with that.
Yeah.
And let's talk about Alabama LSU.
Yeah.
Our game of the week.
Was not a close one.
Not at all. Not at all. And I'm really not that surprised.
Yeah.
Because I have been saying it. I've been saying it. LSU is extremely overrated. LSU is not very good. Alabama, despite their first year woes, they still have Kalen DeBoer.
Mm-hmm.
He's still an incredible coach, and so LSU just got trounced in Death Valley. It's one of the strongest home field advantages in all of college football. They weren't in that game.
No, they were not.
Once it got, what was it, 14-3 at one point, I think the game was over.
Mm.
And then, of course, LSU tried to do the Texas thing where there was a bad call
They
threw a bunch of trash on the field, which, once again, like Clemson the week before, they were just throwing it on their cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where their student section was located, right next to their cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And guys, it's not going to happen again. You're not going to catch lightning in a bottle like Texas did.
No, you're not.
But, hey, they're trying. They are
Or maybe it's just
trying.
a sign of defeat. Once you
I guess,
stuff-
you know what? Every team that's done it has lost. You're
Yeah,
right.
Every single team that throws it on the field, it's a desperation.
Even going back to when it first happened,
In Texas.
Tennessee, well, I mean, I'm talking
Oh,
years
way
ago,
back, yeah.
Tennessee versus Ole Miss. Tennessee lost that game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's...
You throw trash on the field, your team will lose. Or they're already going to lose, so you might as well throw trash on the field.
Yeah, maybe. But, I mean, look, for me, I couldn't have dropped LSU for my rankings because I didn't rank them last week. They were the first team that I didn't rank just because, even though I don't think they're that good, I have to respect the record at some point. So I couldn't drop them for my rankings.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still in there in the overall top 25 for us.
I don't believe I dropped them.
No, you didn't drop them.
I got you.
I just don't think LSU is that good. And again, like all these other teams in the SEC, not all of them, because I do think Texas is good. I just think that they've lucked out with a much easier schedule than people are thinking.
I get that.
LSU doesn't really play a lot of people.
No.
Like, they lost to Alabama, who I think is the best team on their schedule. They lost to A&M at A&M, who has a really good home field advantage, but I don't think A&M is that good. And then their first loss of the year is in a neutral field to USC, who that loss looks worse and worse by the week. I thought USC was going to be really good going into the year. I was wrong.
All right.
I think Alabama... Do you think Alabama's figured stuff out, or do you think this was just like a one game, like they were coming off a bye week? They were ready for this game.
I mean, let's see what they've done recently. Because, I mean, like,
As far as like Alabama goes, I mean, they trounced Missouri and they beat the snot out of LSU. And they're kind of home free after a bad loss to Tennessee. Not a bad loss, but a loss to Tennessee. Barely squeaked by South Carolina and then lost to Vanderbilt. That's the one that really gets me is the loss to Vanderbilt for them.
I mean, Vanderbilt has had a good home field advantage this year.
And
They're
then also
4-2 at home.
But then also all the way back to the Georgia game. They got up big and then let Georgia kind of creep back into the game. It made it close.
Yeah.
They were up huge that game.
Yeah, and then they fell down in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Which
And
is
so,
crazy.
like, it's maybe they finally got it figured out. Or maybe it's like you said, you don't think Missouri's that good or LSU's that good. And so, like, the teams that they played against that have been good or are starting to figure out in Vandy and South Carolina and Tennessee, they just play close.
Yeah.
And so, and then, but I mean, like, the Georgia win is a good win.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
as
Like,
much as I think Georgia is not
it's a good
a
win.
contender this year, it is a good win. Yeah,
Like,
I agree with you there.
okay, here's my question for you. Are we going to I think right now it's going to be a Tennessee-Texas SEC championship.
No, I don't agree with that. Just because I think I've been saying it. I think Texas A&M is going to beat Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're poised for like Texas A&M, and then whoever wins that tiebreaker.
I got you.
Because Georgia,
like,
Georgia and Tennessee play each other
Right, this week. It's going to be a good one.
at I believe at Georgia.
Let's take a look.
But so Tennessee, Texas, I don't think it's that would be a fun one. That would be a fun one because then it's just a
It's
battle.
at Georgia.
Yeah. Tennessee, Texas, and the SEC championship would be the battle for who's the real UT, which the SEC has determined is Tennessee. But I don't know. It's so tight there. I think it's going to come down to tiebreakers.
I get that. Yeah.
Speaking of tiebreakers, trust me, this makes sense. Miami lost to Georgia Tech.
They did.
I'm pretty surprised by that. I think Brent Key is incredible in big games. However, Haynes King was not fully healthy for this game. I thought that would eliminate them from even having a shot
Right.
at winning this game. But I mean, they just dominated Miami. And basically what Georgia Tech did was because Haynes King wasn't fully healthy, for the most part, when he was on the field, he was just like a triple option quarterback. Yeah. Like he threw 10 passes in the game, so they try to keep him honest a little bit. But when they were doing obvious passing downs, they trotted Haynes King off the field and brought in their third string quarterback, who I guess is now their backup quarterback because they played their backup quarterback for 2 games and they went 0-2 in those games. But I mean, Miami was clued in essentially to what Georgia Tech was going to do on offense most every play. And they still couldn't stop them from putting up 28 points on them. And their offense, which is hung 40 on every team this year, pretty much, couldn't break 30.
No.
I mean, they were dominating this game.
The other thing to note about this is that towards the end of the game, they were kneeing the ball down on their goal line. They could have scored again. They could have made this look a lot worse than what it was.
They could have, yeah. But, they were secure in the victory. Also, it's a little bit of salt in the wound of knowing when to kneel the ball against Mario Cristobal. Because last year, this was the game that Mario Cristobal didn't take a knee and they lost because of it.
Do you think Georgia Tech's just their bogey team? Just can't find a way around them?
I mean, Brent Key is incredible in big games. I'm telling, if Haynes King didn't get hurt, I think Georgia Tech would be. They would only be a 2-loss team right now. I don't know how many wins they have.
I got you. So with this loss for Miami,
Go ahead.
sorry. Oh, sorry. With this loss to Miami, who, in your opinion, is the best team in the ACC at the moment?
I mean, I'm pretty high on SMU. I think Miami still is. Miami has so much talent. I think. Look, if we're looking at the top 5 teams in the ACC right now, SMU, Clemson, Miami, Louisville,
The ones
Pitt.
with 2 losses or less.
Yeah.
Yep.
Miami has the worst coach. I don't think that's a question. Miami has the worst coach. But they also have the most talent. Like, by a long shot. And so it still feels like it's Miami's to lose. But I mean, SMU sitting there, SMU has had an easy schedule for the most part. I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. I kind of called it preseason, did I not?
You did. You said SMU was going to be up there.
I picked them to be in the playoff.
Yeah, and right now they are on the expressway to that 4 seed.
I mean,
as if the season was to end today, SMU would be
actually if the season were to end today, they would be the 12 seed because Boise State's ranked ahead of them.
Oh, and Boise would get the 4 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Which I think is too much disrespect. Like, I think if SMU and Boise played, I think SMU would win that game. But so what I was talking about tiebreakers when I brought up Miami, they play 2 more games. They're both ACC games. They only have 1 loss in conference. Clemson has 1 loss. SMU is undefeated. Louisville and Pitt both have 2 losses. If it comes down to a tiebreaker between more than 2 teams for a spot in the championship, do you know what the very first tie-breaking stat is?
It would be head-to-head matchups.
It's not. That's if it's 2 teams.
Oh.
If it's more than 2 teams. Like, if Clemson...
Strength of schedule.
That is exactly it.
So it would be based off of how well other teams do that you've already played and beat.
Yes. And so with the number 1 strength of schedule among the 4 teams with 2 or fewer losses in the ACC, Louisville. By a long shot.
Well, yeah, because we've played the top 3. We're going to play the top 4 teams outside of Louisville in the ACC. We played SMU, Clemson, Miami, and Pitt.
And Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
It's been a tough schedule. But Miami, and the thing is, their final game of the year, their next game is Wake Forest. I think they'll win that, no problem. Their final game of the year is at Syracuse. I don't think that that's just a cakewalk. I think, like, Syracuse has the offense to keep up with Miami. The question is just, can they get some stops? And, you know, Georgia Tech kind of gave them the formula a little bit. Syracuse beat Georgia Tech earlier in the year. I don't think Miami is necessary. I do think they are currently the favorite to win the ACC, but I don't think they're a shoo-in to make the championship game.
No, they're not.
Now, of course, this scenario includes Pitt beating Clemson.
Oh,
that has to happen as well. Which is at Pitt. It can happen.
They're on a 2-game slide, though.
They are.
Which, do you want to get to that game?
Yeah, you know, let's talk about it. We did 2 SEC games in a row. We'll do 2 ACC games in a row. Virginia upset Pitt.
They did.
How they upset Pitt.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. I don't think Tony Elliott's that good a coach, but Calandria is an electric quarterback. He can keep a team in a game. He can steal a game. I just think he's really dynamic at quarterback.
I gotcha.
The way they won that game is that Virginia was down. It was 4th down, and they had to go for it to try to keep their hopes of winning alive. And they went for it. Pitt stopped them. Pitt gets the ball back, turnover on downs. They're probably going to be able to run out the clock. But the refs come in, and they say, we need to replay 4th down because we weren't in position. So they replay 4th down.
That's
Virginia converts the 4th down on what is essentially 5th down. And then Virginia goes on to win the game. That's how Pitt lost.
Wow.
Sure, they were in that position to begin with. You know, like, it's not like they were dominating the game and then the refs just took it from them. It was a close game. It was a close game all game. But that's why they lost.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is wild.
Kind of got... Utah's AD said that the refs stole the game from them.
Oh,
in
the Big 12.
I don't think that's the case, but I think the refs definitely stole the game from Pitt.
Wow.
Their official Twitter just tweeted LOL okay.
Oh, that's funny.
Which, yeah, you know.
And this is to think preseason that we would have two teams that we thought were going to be so good in the Big 12, and then to find them towards the very, very bottom in Utah and Oklahoma State.
Utah's is predictable just in the sense that, like, everyone knew their success was dependent on Cam Rising's health.
Right.
Oklahoma State is crazy, though. That's how many games in a row have they lost?
They are currently
They're like
on a 7-game
3-7. That's wild.
They've lost all 7 Big 12 games.
That's so.
It's what
crazy.
happens when you had a Heisman hopeful last year in Ollie Gordon, and you have a quarterback that can't throw the ball, so you rely heavily on Ollie Gordon.
Yeah, just stack 10 in the box and be like, okay,
Yeah.
beat us.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be the recipe.
Yeah.
Talk about coaches this year that also historically very good, and I'm mainly pointing at Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, and then also Mike Norwell. Mike, guys, what's up with the Mike coach?
Mike.
What is
So,
going on?
Oklahoma State, they're not going to make a bowl game this year. They're not bowl eligible.
They're already 7-1.
Assuming they don't win their last 2 games, and there's just not enough teams that are 6-6, because that happens sometimes.
Right.
I'm assuming that. If that's the case, then the 18-year bowl streak for Oklahoma State will snap.
I think it might as well have, because there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams above them that aren't bowl eligible in their own conference. I have a hard time believing that they're going to be able to jump any of those spots and fill a bowl. They literally have to win out.
They do.
Win their last 2. And
Yeah.
at this current rate, who the heck knows?
Who do they play, just out of curiosity?
Oklahoma State still has on their schedule Texas Tech and Colorado.
Yeah, they're not winning those
You
games.
can kiss it goodbye.
And those are 2 teams that can like really score.
Yeah.
There's no way Oklahoma is going to win those games.
No. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so again, well, you know what? Let's great segue. Let's talk about BYU Utah. Utah played better than they have been. They benched Isaac Wilson for their sophomore quarterback, who I think his name was Brandon Rose. I could be wrong about that, but they looked better. They scored 21 points in the first half. They were up 21-10, I believe, going into halftime. They were playing good football, and then they didn't score at all in the second half. And BYU came back, and it became 21-19. And BYU was like, all right, let's try to mount this game-winning drive. And then they got stopped on first down, stopped on second down, stopped on third down. And they became 4th and 10. 4th and 10 at like their own like 7 or something like that. They were pinned deep. And so on 4th down, BYU's quarterback gets sacked. Turnover on downs right there. Utah has an opportunity to score, put it. It's like 1st and goal, like the 1, and so they got an opportunity to put it up, but a flag comes out. It's defensive holding on Utah. Keeps the drive alive. BYU ends up marching down and kicking the game-winning field goal as time expires. After the game, Utah's AD said that the refs stole the game from them.
Was it the right call?
Yeah, it was. It was absolutely a hold. Yeah, Utah's AD got fined, I think, $40,000 by the Big Ten, which is a lot. That's a big chunk of change. I mean, a lot of people are looking at this game and they're like, that's a terrible game by BYU. I don't think so. It's a rivalry game. Like, rivalry games can get weird. On top of that, Utah still has a great defense. Like, as bad as their quarterback situation has been after Cam Rising this year, their defense is so good. So, BYU struggling to score against Utah, it doesn't really mean much to me. It's a great defense. I don't know. What do you think about this?
Utah's bad. Like, they struggled to move the ball. Like,
Yeah, they didn't score in the second half.
right. And so it's like Utah's never a team that I think, oh, wow, they're going to put up 35 or 40. Like, they win games putting up 21 points and holding the other team to 13. Like, they're not exactly a team that, like,
I honestly am curious, like, what's the most amount of points they put up in a game this year? Like we're talking 21, 14, 7, 19, 10, 22. They put up 38 against Utah State, 49 against Southern Utah. But outside of that, the most points they've scored against a Power 5 team is 23 against a bad Baylor team. Like, this offense is garbage.
Without Cam Rising, yeah.
I mean, at this point, I would just call it garbage because Cam Rising, his best ability is not availability. He's not there to play.
I know.
And then also, I also think, like, at what point does Kyle Whittingham go, you know what? This guy hasn't played a consistent season for, 2.5 years almost, it feels like?
Not 2.5 years.
It was about to be 2 years here, is what I'm trying
two.
to say. So 2 years? So part of me just thinks, like, why not go out with the NIL, with the money, and invest in a guy who you feel like can be healthy? You know, it's one of those things where it's like, if he can't play, and you're investing all this money into him, and that you can't, and your backups obviously are not cutting it. Like, they're bad with their backups, right?
Yeah.
I feel like they need to go out and just get a quarterback that they think is going to be available.
I think they should definitely go out and try to get. I think if they can, I think they should bring Cam Rising back. I honestly believe that. I think he gives them the best chance to be an elite team. We've seen him do that. He's led them to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
So he gives them their best chance to actually compete for a national championship. I think they should still bring in a backup quarterback in the transfer portal, because I don't think it's going to be too hard to convince someone like, hey, Cam Rising has had health issues. Like, you're going to be ready to go. Like, you got to be ready to go. And I know everyone wants to start, but like,
yeah, I don't know about that. You're definitely not going to get a top end guy, because basically
you don't have to get a top end guy. You
you're
just have to get someone that's more serviceable than what you have.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. But I do wonder what the level of that guy is, because who is willing as a quarterback to go into Utah and be the backup? And like, what is the comparable level of the backup at Utah comparable to getting a starting job elsewhere? Like, I don't like any power conference team, I think, would want that guy if he's a starter. So like, what would incentivize that? The Utah guys are going after. So what would incentivize him to go to Utah and sit and wait for a guy to get hurt?
NIL. Depends. I mean, if you get a good enough package to be the guy in waiting.
But you're just riding pine in the hopes that you get a shot.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, you don't have to necessarily be. You don't have to go after like a senior. You can go after a guy with some eligibility.
I understand what you're saying. I just wonder what level of talent they can get by saying, "Hey, Cam's coming back," and what quarterback is going to be like, "Yeah, I'll sit behind Cam."
Well, the thing is, you're like, hey, come in
Like,
and battle for QB1.
I think it's going to be rare to find a Dante Moore to sit behind a Dylan Gabriel. Like, that's far and few between, I think. Like,
Yeah.
there's not too many guys with that talent level.
The thing is, they have. Feel free to chastise me after this, but they have Isaac Wilson. Physically, Isaac Wilson's all the way there. He's a guy that you, like a quarterback coach, looks at, and if they're all narcissists, so they look at Isaac Wilson and they're like, "Oh, I could mold him. I can make him an NFL guy."
Right.
Because he's got all the tools. So if you really believe in your ability to coach up quarterbacks, which, it's up to the Utah staff, then you have this guy in waiting. He's a true freshman.
Right.
I don't know how many games he's played. I doubt he still has his red shirt. But there's this guy that you can mold in Isaac Wilson. You just have to bring in a guy that is a better stopgap. in the event that either Cam Rising is hurt or Cam Rising doesn't use his last year of eligibility. I think it's possible. I think because Jordan Mailata went to USC, and he ended up being the backup until what we're going to see this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's completely out of the question to ask a good quarterback to come in and be the backup, because it happens. It happens at places.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to see what approach they take. But do you think this... back to the original question. Do you think this is a bad showing for BYU?
I mean, against this defense, no.
I think it's against this defense at Utah, and it's a rivalry game.
I think yeah. I think against Utah's defense, no. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's quickly do all the other games. Michigan, Indiana.
Closer.
Yeah, I'm not shocked, honestly.
No, I think you said this. It was going to be close.
Yeah, I'm not shocked.
No, but good win. Probably their best win, Indiana. It's either that or Nebraska.
Which Nebraska is, I believe, 5-4 right now. They have lost 7 straight games with a chance for bowl eligibility.
It is, Michigan, you could say Washington, Nebraska, or Maryland. They haven't really played anyone yet,
and those are all teams like hovering around 500.
But they got the big one next week.
Not next week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yep.
So Michigan really had a comeback effort, fell short. Indiana pulled off the win. Iowa State lost their second in a row.
Yeah.
To Kansas this time.
Yeah.
That's not a good loss.
It is not.
I mean, Kansas, I still think has talent. Like, Jalen Daniel is really good.
Devin Neal's good.
Yes, Devin Neal is still really good. I still think Lance Leipold is a good coach. I think they just went into the season, and I'm pretty sure Kansas has lost like 4 games by 1 possession.
They've lost. Let me count. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
They've lost 5 games by 1 possession.
So
they could be a 1-loss team.
They could be.
I mean, I know that's a dangerous game to play, but they're not the worst 3-6 team in the world.
No, they are not.
Do I think they're going to make a bowl? No, I do not. They have too tough a schedule, but it's not a great loss for Iowa State, and it's your second loss in a row. It's not very good. Colorado beat Texas Tech in a game that was closer than the box score would suggest, but Colorado's the real deal, man.
Yeah, they are. They're right now in line to play for a
Big 12 championship.
Big 12 championship against BYU if everything holds.
I think they will.
I could see it.
I think they will. Their schedule remaining is not that tough. Honestly, their toughest game might be at Kansas.
Yeah.
And then South Carolina, Vandy. South Carolina beat Vandy by 21 in Nashville.
They're starting to hum.
They are.
South Carolina, I don't know what they have done,
But they are starting to figure out how to play football.
I got to be honest, I'm impressed.
I mean, like, they are currently sitting at
6-3.
6-3, 3-game win streak, including wins over Vandy, A&M, and Oklahoma. They barely lost to barely lost to Alabama, barely lost to LSU, beat the snot out of Kentucky. Their only really, really bad loss this year is to Ole Miss by 24. Other than that, they've stayed competitive in every single game that they've been in, or just flat out dominated.
Mm-hmm. And then they got Missouri next.
Yeah.
I think they're going to beat Missouri.
I could see it.
I don't think there's any. I'm not going to say there's not any world where they don't beat Missouri, but I don't think Missouri has much chance.
Here's a fun one for you. End of the year. Getting way ahead of myself here.
Okay.
South Carolina-Clemson rivalry game at Clemson.
I mean, this is a tough one. South Carolina has Shane Beamer can beat Clemson. Previously, pretty much every South Carolina coach before him could not beat Clemson. They just couldn't do it. I don't know. He knows how to coach in those games. That's really tough.
It is a tough one.
It's at Clemson, so I'm leaning towards Clemson.
Don't worry. We'll get to it in 3 weeks.
We will. But, all right, let's move on to the news.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel is now the all-time touchdown leader in the NCAA.
I mean, it makes sense coming from Oklahoma and then going to another powerhouse in Oregon.
Oh, he was at Central Florida first,
Yeah.
and then Oklahoma, and now Oregon.
Oh yeah, was he a part of that undefeated team?
No.
The UCF team?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was so long ago.
No, not like the undefeated team, but like they were good under him. My apologies.
They were good under him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is year 5 for Dylan Gabriel. It's not that shocking, honestly, especially all the systems that he's played in. It's just been a lot of up-tempo.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
score a lot of points. Yeah, good for Dylan Gabriel. Diego Pavia. I feel like this would be a bigger story if it weren't the time we live in. Diego Pavia suing the NCAA over their eligibility rules.
Yeah.
The lawsuit claims that counting JUCO seasons toward eligibility and prohibiting red shirts after an athlete has already played 4 years are against the Sherman Antitrust Act. I'm going to be perfectly honest. While I'm on the side of Cam Rising, just because that's the rules the NCAA has already laid out, he's just using the rules. I'm not really on Diego Pavia's side here.
I'm not on Diego Pavia's side one bit here.
This is his first year at Vandy. He played 2 years at New Mexico State, and then he played a year at a JUCO school in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And that year was during the COVID year. He should get an extra year of eligibility just because of COVID, I believe. Actually, no, I think he played 2 years there. Yeah, so he played 2 years there, 2 years at New Mexico State, and this is his COVID year at Vandy.
I think it's dumb.
Yeah, like, and being able to redshirt after 4 years of playing, why? You've already used your eligibility at that point.
Here's my take on it.
If you are not that talented enough out of high school to where you don't get discovered and you can't get a D1 offer, or you also have like bad academics to where it forces you into the JUCO route or anything along those lines, for whatever the case may be, whether it's talent on the field, off the field issues, whatever. There's so many reasons why guys take a JUCO route, right? So many opportunities, right? The fact that you did not excel on a certain level to be able to play at Division I level and get noticed for whatever reason it was, and then you want to say that shouldn't count towards eligibility because no one discovered you or noticed you until those JUCO years, I think it's dumb. The fact of the matter is that this rule could be manipulated so hard if it gets approved. Imagine you are an 18-year-old coming out of high school, right? You play football, you're a wide receiver, and you get offers by these low, middling level wide receiver, like low level group of 5 schools, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to go JUCO. Why? Because it won't count towards a year. I'm going to get better and develop my skills, right? And then once I'm ready to make the jump, I have 4 years of eligibility.
Yeah.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I mean, I have to agree with you. Honestly, I do. Like, college is college. There's a reason that you play 4 years. It's because the important thing ultimately is not the playing football. It kind of will be, once it's an official job.
Right.
But the key is that you're a student as well.
Right.
And those eligibility rules are in place because you don't want someone who's just like taking 6 hours a semester to play until they're 28 just because. If you manipulate the rules as far as like that guy for Arkansas who's 28 because he played baseball,
Right.
and then come back and play in a different sport, it's like, whatever, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care that much about that. But, or like Cam Rising, one of the years he redshirted, he was forced to sit out because the old one-time transfer rule didn't exist. And then he's getting 2 medical redshirts. I'm okay with up to 2 medical redshirts just because, like, injuries happen. You don't want to ruin someone's career just because, like, they got injured twice, like a couple of freak injuries. This is just Diego Pavia trying to
He's trying
play
to
more
milk,
football.
He's trying to milk the cash cow that he has received this year because Vanderbilt is playing well.
Yeah.
And
Which I get it.
I understand. It's one of those things where it's like, it's the gap between college sports and the NFL or any professional level.
Yeah.
You have these forever college guys who their game doesn't translate to the next level, or they're just not good enough for the next level, or they're fearful that they're not going to be a high enough round draft pick to where they have a decent shot or investment in a professional team.
Yeah.
But they're good college players
Mm-hmm.
to where if they stuck around, they could excel at this level, but the next level they can't. Because Diego Pavia realizes that he is probably not a good enough quarterback to be a starter
He's
in the
not.
NFL
He's not.
or a backup in the NFL for whatever reason. But he realizes he's good enough to be a decent quarterback at an SEC school.
And make, like $200,000.
Make some good money, right?
Yeah.
And so I personally just think this is his attempt at saying, I want to try and get another year of eligibility. Heck, the NCAA has lost so many court cases.
Oh, they've been getting dog walked.
They've
in
been
court.
absolutely getting destroyed. Pavia's just like, why not try this, see if it works?
Yeah.
Because if it does, he's probably making a very decent-sized paycheck staying at Vanderbilt another year.
Yeah. I mean, look, I love Diego Pavia. He's been one of the most fun stories
Yeah.
in the entire football season. I'm not on his side here.
No.
Just not. Gotta be honest, hope he loses. Just because there has to be rules at some point. There has to be some sort of guidelines, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Florida State, the 2025 season has officially started as they fired both coordinators and their wide receiver coach. Throw in the wide receiver coach in. That's an interesting one.
So the wide receiver coach one is interesting. His name's like Duggan or whatever, Florida State.
I don't know.
So there is a rumor that Ron Duggins is his name. There's a rumor that was circling. Don't know how true it is. Don't know how valuable it is. Keon Coleman, former wide receiver for Florida State, former first-round draft pick last year to the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
There was a rumor that said that he was telling Florida State recruits not to go to Florida State because of the wide receiver coach.
Yeah.
And if that's true, that might be part of the reason that he's getting fired. Now, Florida State's offensive coordinator, Alex Atkins, a year ago was touted by the fans as one of the best, was fearful of him getting poached to another job. Rumors were circling that he could have had the Kirk Cinetti job at JMU or even the likes of it, and now he's being fired. I just think it's life comes at you pretty quick to go from.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta suck to be him because, did he pick DJU? That doesn't help.
Well, it's also I think when the quarterback, it's definitely that's Mike Norwell. And also,
their offensive line is not any good.
No, something needed to change on the offense. The offense stunk. When you put up 3 points against Notre Dame, it's pretty bad. As well as giving up 52 to them as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think this is enough to save Mike's job, Norwell's job?
I think his job was safe. Anyway, the
regardless.
buyout was like $62 million.
I got you.
He wasn't getting fired. Speaking of maybe not getting fired, Florida's athletic director came out and gave a public vote of confidence for Billy Napier. Say he was doing a good job. Does that mean his job is safe?
I think so.
Billy's not getting Sunbelt Billy going to stay in the SEC a little bit longer?
I think Sunbelt Billy is staying in the SEC. Don't get me wrong. They need to find 2 wins in their last 3, and I think it's doable. Do I think it will happen? No, but I think it's doable.
Well, they play Florida State. That's an easy dub.
Right.
And then they play LSU and Ole Miss at home.
Yeah.
I could easily see them pulling off an upset in one of those.
It's doable. The one thing that's interesting, though, is that the fact that the AD has come out and said this, it's not, why, putting up the counterpoint, why would the AD say this and, have a smoke screen when he really knows he's going to fire Billy Napier? The comment doesn't make sense because it looks bad if
he gives his vote of confidence and he's sticking behind Billy, and then he fires him, it looks bad. But then also, I also think like if he does this and he believes in Billy Napier for next season and it doesn't work out, then the AD's job could be
Yeah, I was about to say, like
at some point,
the
like,
sooner you fire the head coach, the
you're
sooner
saving your job.
Yeah, like it just. Actually, I don't know. I feel like at any point, if Billy Napier gets fired, then the AD might be on the chopping block, because if he fires Billy Napier, he'll be hiring a third football coach.
Yeah. And that's not a good look as an AD.
I mean, most schools, especially Florida, a school that has national championships in football, that takes the sport very seriously, a lot of the time you don't get to hire two.
No, you don't.
So
if you get one wrong, you're kind of in trouble there.
Yeah. I mean, it's rough.
I personally think this is him knowing that he can't fire this guy, because if he fires him, it's his job too.
It kind of is.
So I think the vote of confidence.
Also,
I think he's just trying to get one more year.
I will say Florida has been a lot better than people expected.
I mean,
I think you expected this.
I thought they could be the best 6-6 team.
Which I still don't. If they go 6-6, I don't know if they're the best.
I mean,
I'd have to look at all the other teams
I mean,
that go
looking at their
6-6.
schedule,
Yeah, you're probably right. If they do, if they pull off an upset against LSU or Ole Miss, you're probably right.
Right. I mean,
But,
like they've played 1, 2.
I mean, at the end of the
3.
day, it's your competition is just a bunch of other 6-6 teams.
I mean,
like I don't think it's.
What's tough is like they've beaten every single unranked opponent, but they've lost to every ranked opponent. Make that of what you will. Like they've lost to Miami, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas.
I think they would have beat Georgia if they would have had DJ Lagway healthy the whole game.
And then like they went to overtime against Tennessee.
Can you click on the Texas game? I want to see who they started at quarterback, because if they didn't have, they didn't play DJ Lagway. They didn't have a chance at winning this Texas game.
No,
because the quarterback that they're playing is literally a transfer from Yale.
Oh,
guy's not good.
No,
I'm sure he's a nice kid. He's not good. But
when you have to play the GPA booster in your Florida in football.
But
yeah, I mean,
they've been better than expected.
I mean, like if they win this Tennessee game, he's for sure safe.
If they win Georgia, he's absolutely safe.
But I mean, like they've beaten Kentucky, UCF, Mississippi State, Stanford, whatever. I mean, like I understand what people are saying. Like the only real good win is against Kentucky, if you even want to argue that.
Kentucky's 3-6.
They're pretty bad right now, but yeah, they just can't win the big ones. But they can beat anyone below them. I think. Here's what's tough is like if you were to rank Florida going into the preseason, they've won every game that they are supposed to win. They just can't get the upset.
Yeah. I mean, except Kentucky. Preseason, people thought Kentucky was going to beat Florida.
Right.
I guess that's the lone upset that they had. Because at the time that they played, Kentucky was only like 3-3 or something like that.
Right.
Maybe 3-4. But I will say I did predict them to go 5-7 preseason. And that could happen.
Oh, I think they're going 5-7.
That could happen. But you know what? Let's stick on a story that's pertinent to the athletic director of Florida, and that would be Todd Golden.
Who is Todd Golden?
Todd Golden is Florida's basketball coach.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And he is being accused via a Title IX investigation of sexual harassment and stalking of the students of Florida.
What?
Yep.
What in the world?
So in the investigation, which it's a very, based on the allegations, it's very easily proved or disproved.
I got you.
He's cited as allegedly sending inappropriate pictures, which we know
You
what
can
that
either
means.
prove it or don't prove it.
We know what that means.
Yep.
Inappropriate pictures of himself to Florida students. Also, taking pictures of their cars and sending them to them, and just showing up where they are.
That is stalking.
That is stalking if it's true. It has been alleged. Todd Golden has since hired a lawyer and floated around that maybe he'll bring up defamation claims. Again, if it's true, this is so easily proven. Like there's it's
Right.
true or it's not.
It's either it happened or
Because of Title IX rules, the university is not allowed to comment on this. So we're not going to get anything from Florida. He is coaching their next game.
Okay.
Florida plays tonight as of recording this,
I got you.
and he's going to be coaching that game.
Okay.
So we'll see how that one goes. But
We'll see.
look, if this is true, you got to fire the guy.
Oh, of course.
Like, this is insane behavior if it's true.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care how good a coach he is, because he is a good coach. You got to can the guy. I mean, stalking?
Let the investigation run its course and find its findings. 'Cause
Yeah.
Nothing's would be worse. I don't know what's worse. Is that if it's false and he had to go through this, or if it's true? I think it's worse if it's true.
It's absolutely worse if it's true.
Yeah, I think it's worse if it's true.
Because if it's false, then if it's false, then that's just the craziest,
Story to come up with.
targeted, hit at this guy.
Right.
Because then multiple people have lied in the same manner about some guy. Then it's coordinated, which I just find that so implausible. I think implausible.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Apparently, this is the third sexual harassment claim by a coach at Florida that the athletic director has had to deal with, dating back to 2021. I think he fired some non-revenue sport coach, and then he might have fired the women's basketball coach too. I don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly correct, but there has been 2 other coaches that he's had to fire because of this. Not the stalking, but the sexual harassment. Ooh, it's rough. Anyway, the other basketball story. Well, there's kind of 2 basketball stories, but the other fun one. So Auburn played Houston on Sunday night. It's a good game. Auburn actually won that game.
They did win.
That's
that
a
game.
huge win.
It's a very good win.
I think Auburn's really good, man. I think Auburn is really good this year. On their way to Houston to play them, on the flight to Houston, 2 Auburn players got into a fight, and the plane had to make an emergency landing, and they kicked those 2 dudes off the plane.
They did.
And then they just flew to Houston without those 2 guys.
The other thing to know is I believe those 2 players, it was a senior and a freshman. Let me see if I can't find who the players were.
Yeah, I saw the names too. I didn't look into it to see how important they were.
I believe return to airport freshman Jakeem Howard and senior forward Jaheim Hudson. Both players were barred from getting on the second flight late Friday night and remain on campus missing highly. Yeah, so they missed the game. So it is the freshman forward Jakeem Howard and senior forward Jaheim Hudson.
Yeah, I mean, they still won that game. So it's crazy. They've moved to number 1 in KenPom.
Can you click on the Vermont game? I want to see if these guys even played.
Yeah.
Click on the W. No, not that. Go
Okay.
back.
Yeah,
click on the score. So we have a Jakeem Howard. Did he play?
Jakeem Howard played 20 minutes.
20 minutes. And then Jaheim Hudson.
Jaheim Hudson played 15.
Okay, so maybe these guys are part of the roster.
Now, again, that's against Vermont.
No. It could have been garbage time, rotate minutes.
Well, so you subtract 8 minutes off of that.
Right.
Just because they beat Vermont by 51.
Right. But they were able to beat Houston without them. And I thought there might be a possibility where they might miss Maui, too. But I could be wrong.
I don't know. But so this Vermont team, by the way, that Auburn beat, this Vermont team beat UAB in the opening week of the season.
Yeah.
UAB, a lot of people have touted as they're a really, really good mid-major. They won. Did they win the American last year? I think they did. So a lot of people thought like, oh, they're just going to take a step forward. They're going to be really good this year. So if that is to be believed, and Vermont beat what was a good UAB team, and then Auburn just had a cakewalk against Vermont, this Auburn team is legit. But
November 25th through the 27th. So I want to do something with you real quick.
yeah,
There's 2 tournaments coming up.
yes,
Battle for Atlantis and the Maui Invitational.
yeah.
The Maui Invitational has Auburn in alphabetical order: Auburn, Colorado, Dayton, Iowa State, Memphis, Michigan State, North Carolina, and UConn. Out of those 8 teams I listed, who wins the Maui Invitational?
I mean, I've got to lean towards Auburn right now.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, Auburn's looked really, really good. I know UConn can win it. UNC looks solid.
I think Iowa State.
Iowa State absolutely could win it, and Michigan State has looked good too. They haven't played anyone, but they are beating teams pretty bad. The battle for Atlantis, Gonzaga's gonna win.
I think so too.
I mean, it's Gonzaga and everyone else. That's what it is.
Holy.
While he's looking at that, we'll give the last bit of news.
Just for the list of the Atlantis, it is Arizona, Davidson, Gonzaga, Indiana, Louisville, Oklahoma, Providence, West Virginia. I think there is a clear dog. I think it's basically Gonzaga, Arizona, and then probably Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the final bit of news for the day: Grand Canyon is going to the Mountain West
They are.
right after they agreed to go to the West Coast Conference. I mean, why not?
Why not?
You know, why not?
We
go
actually
to a better
missed this. This was 9 days ago. This news came out.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, they're going there.
They are. That's exactly where
Good,
they're
good for
going.
Grand Canyon. Good for that. I believe it's a for-profit university. But anyway, just saying. Let's go on to our pick'ems for the week. We've got 10. I think we only had 10 last week. Not a ton of great games the last couple weeks. So, yeah, there's some good ones, but not a lot. So we're going to start our pick'ems off with Clemson versus Pitt. I'm going to take Pitt. I might regret this. I'm going to take Pitt.
I'm going Clemson.
Yeah,
But that just solidifies it since you went Pitt.
it's a toss-up in my mind.
Okay.
Utah versus Colorado. Again, Utah's got that great defense. They don't look great on offense.
This is an interesting one because I feel like Colorado isn't fantastic on defense, but they're really good. They're not, but the offense is what humps.
The offense runs the show.
The offense is what runs the show as compared to Utah, where the defense runs the show
Yeah.
and it's the offense. So it's 2 polar opposites. I will say all it takes is 1 or 2 big plays by Colorado, and this game is over. Give me Colorado. Because
Potentially, depending on well the defense plays, all it takes is 1 or 2 plays by Utah.
to make something happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
And this could be a letdown game for Colorado because if you look at the schedule, it looks pretty easy. You know, if you're Colorado and you go into a game kind of just assuming you're going to win, you could easily lose. But I'm going to take Colorado. All right, next up we have Tulane versus Navy. 2 of the top teams in the American. Both have 2 losses. I'm going to take Tulane.
Why not keep it with the naval forces? Go Navy.
John Summerall's a great coach.
Let's do it.
All right, next up, Mercer versus Alabama.
Why the hell is this on here?
Mercer is 9-1. They are top 15 in the FCS. Kalen DeBoer coaches down to his opponents.
You're joking. This is an option.
Mercer has a better record than Alabama.
You got this shit eating grin, don't you? You feel so good about yourself putting Mercer, Alabama on the pick'ems.
Who are you picking?
Bama.
I'm going to pick Bama too.
I saw Mercer and I was like, what the hell?
All right, next up we have Syracuse versus Cal. Cal just got their first ever ACC win against Wake Forest.
And that's about all they're getting. Give me Syracuse.
I'm going to take Cal.
Is it at Cal?
It's
or
at
we're
Cal.
And so we're doing the West Coast thing, traveling, 3-hour difference.
That has not seemed to affect ACC schools as much as it has Big Ten schools. I don't know why. It could just be the law of averages, like it'll even out, but I don't know. I'm going to take Cal.
I'll do Syracuse.
All right, next up we have Virginia versus Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is the superior team talent-wise and probably coaching-wise too. I'm not very high on Marcus Freeman. I just think that Tony Elliott kind of sucks. But Virginia has Calandria, and Calandria can make things happen.
I'll take Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm going to take Notre Dame as well. Next up, we have Boston College versus SMU. Again, Boston College has a dynamic quarterback, can keep his team in games.
Thomas Castellanos.
Yes, but I'm going to take SMU. I just think it's at SMU. They're too good.
Let's ride the Pony Express. Why not?
Let's ride the Pony Express. Next up, we have Missouri versus South Carolina.
South Carolina's hot. Let's keep the hot hand rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I tipped my hand earlier. I said I thought South Carolina was going to win this game. I'm going to pick them. Next up, we have Oregon versus Wisconsin.
What is going on with Luke Fickell in Wisconsin? Can't seem to figure it out.
I don't know.
Give me Oregon.
I'm going to take Oregon as well. It's at Wisconsin. Maybe there's something there, but no, I'm going to take Oregon. And then finally, our game of the week. Tennessee at Georgia. Georgia coming off of a pretty bad loss when you consider how they looked.
Yeah.
Tennessee coming off of, it was close in the first half against Mississippi State, but then they just, they just blew them out at the end. But Nico Iamaleava got hurt in that game. He has said Heupel has said he is going to play against Georgia, though. Who you got?
Everything's telling me to pick Georgia, but I want the UT matchup in the SEC championship, so give me Tennessee.
I'm going to take Georgia.
I think you might be right there.
Yeah, I think they're going to bounce back. It's at Georgia. I mean, has Tennessee gotten a good road win this year? I don't actually know.
Let's take a look. Tennessee.
What's their best road win?
Their best road win is
Oklahoma. Yeah, because they lost at Arkansas.
Yeah. All right.
All right, there we go. Those are our pick'ems. That's our show. Hope you enjoyed it. We hope you come back. We're gonna miss you.